Global markets are bracing themselves for another turbulent week ahead as the fallout from the announcement of US tariffs continues. EU trade ministers will meet in Luxembourg tomorrow amid divisions over the scope of retaliatory measures between member states. Here, the Finance Minister Paschal Donhoe has said a wage subsidy scheme similar to the COVID-19 pandemic payment would not be appropriate at the moment for sectors impacted by US tariffs.
Vietnam, where most Nike products are manufactured, is among the highest tariff-hit countries. On top of the 10% baseline import tax, an extra 36% levy will impact its US-bound exports from Wednesday. It's an example of how US consumers face possible increased prices if companies pass on costs. As countries continue to consider responses to the US president's trade policy, senior White House officials say some nations are already seeking deals.
More than 50 countries have reached out to the president to begin a negotiation, but they're doing that because they understand that they bear a lot of the tariff.
Tomorrow, the EU Commission is to propose to member states a list of US products to hit with extra duties in response to Donald Trump's 25% tariff on steel, aluminium and cars announced last month. It's reported the proposals include US cereals, wine, clothing, chewing gum and toilet paper, while a response to the 20% tariff on most other goods will be discussed by EU trade ministers in Luxembourg.
The Finance Minister today said while all options need to be considered, the response should be measured, graduated and proportionate. Paschal Donhoe also said a wage subsidy scheme for businesses who may be impacted here is not currently on the table.
So I'm not aiming to bring that proposal forward at the moment. I don't believe an economy-wide wage subsidy scheme in the way we had during the COVID pandemic would be appropriate.
I think we have to be very careful in terms of next step and what our next step is. And I think more important than any of that, we have to do our preparatory work here to ensure that we are given supports, that supports are available, they're on the table for businesses.
Taoiseach and Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister Simon Harris will also be talking tariffs, as will Agriculture Minister Martin Hayden when they meet their counterparts in the US over the coming days. President Trump, seen here leaving a golf championship in Florida, will tomorrow host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with tariffs also on the agenda. Fergal O'Brien, RTE News.
We're joined now by our political coverage editor, Joe McGrady, who's been in studio with us. And Joe, a lot happening over the weekend and a lot happening this week. Can you bring us up to date with where we are and what's to come?
Yes, Ray, a huge amount of work going on here and in Europe to formulate a response to the US tariffs. So we know tomorrow morning, as Fergal said there, that the trade ministers will be meeting in Luxembourg. Simon Harris, as Taoiseach, will be attending there. They're hoping to come up with a unified response that will ultimately lead to negotiations with the United States about the tariffs. The 20% tariff, which, by the way, kicks in on Wednesday for all products from Ireland going to the United States, all products from the EU going to the United States. At the same time, Reuters are reporting that the European Commission has finalised this list, again, Fergal referred to it there, of countermeasures that are a response not to the 20% but to the previous steel and aluminium tariffs that Donald Trump introduced in March. So that list, Fergal outlined some of the items on it. What will be very interesting to see is what the United States reaction to that will be, because Donald Trump previously said that, for instance, if bourbon whiskey was included, he'd hit back with 200% on drinks from the European Union. All of that is yet to come. That list, that will go to member states tomorrow night and will be voted on Wednesday by leaders. Wednesday is going to be a very interesting day. The tariffs kick in. That vote will take place, and it's the day that the Minister for Trade, Taoiseach Simon Harris, will be meeting with the US Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, in Washington. And with all that is happening, I think it's fair to say that that is likely to be a very interesting conversation as the Taoiseach tries to put the Irish case and the European case to Mr Lutnick.
OK, quite the week ahead. Joe, thank you.